because there's no subscription fee. And we're live with another episode of BS Busters. Thank you for joining us. I'm joined by the usual one of the usual suspects, Kenoshi.
This is Kenoshi Abominito. Glad to be on another one of these BS Busters.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you, sir. We have some good topics to cover tonight. It's me, Mr. Red Fox, and I'll just introduce them and we'll get into it. So we've got 4 topics for tonight. Well, technically 5 because we'll be doing our unpopular opinion / hot take section at the end. But we will each give our number 1 worst game in 5 genres and why. Those genres are RPG, beat 'em up, side-scrolling shooter, 2D fighter, and 2D platformer. Faux outrage and why it's bullshit is our second topic. I'm just gonna give my thoughts on Guild Wars 2 finally coming to Steam, and then I think we'll include in that topic what other games we would like to see. Huge games that might be sectioned off in their own little world come to Steam. No matter how ridiculous it may be. So we can go pie to the sky on this one. And then I guess I'll give my thoughts about the She-Hulk show thus far. And then we'll get to hot takes and unpopular opinions. So let's get started with the first one. The worst 5 games in the RPG, beat 'em up, side-scrolling shooter, and 2D fighter and 2D platformer category. You want to go first, sir? What's the worst RPG you've ever played?
I'll just. Are we picking 5 for each or just one?
Just one. 5 genres, but one. You're like, this is the
okay,
worst
okay.
RPG I've ever played. This RPG is god awful. It should have never been released. Fuck it. And here's why. Go for it. You go first, sir.
I'd say Chrono Cross, just for the fact that they lied and said this is a sequel to Chrono Trigger. It had hardly anything to do with Chrono Trigger, unless you're willing to, go into headcanon.
Except the kid is the alternate version of Shayla who got eaten by Lavos.
Yeah.
It's like, and do you want to accept that? I don't.
I wouldn't have said that it shouldn't have been made, but it should have never been called Chrono Trigger.
I mean, Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross.
Yeah, yeah. I can agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't. I can't. I'm not going to disagree with your opinions because I share a lot of them. I just don't want to put it as like I wouldn't say it's the worst RPG ever. But I can. If you're a huge Chrono Trigger fan, and then someone's like, "Yeah, we're making a sequel to Chrono Trigger," and it's like, "Oh, great!" And you get Chrono Cross, you're like, "What the fuck is this shit?" It's like that time I went to a friend of mine. He and his girl. Well, he was an omnivore. His girlfriend was vegan and a fruitarian, and she was also one of those people who like we don't raw food. So all the food that she made was like nuts and seeds and dates and shit like that. Like those people who make those no bake brownies.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was one of those people, right?
No.
And now I have nothing against that if you're just like every once in a while, because I've had some I've had some no bake cookies that were actually pretty good. But all it is they take medjool dates, which are like almost pure sugar, and they put in a food processor with cocoa powder and maybe some type of nut, and they grind it up, and it looks like they look like little chocolate cookies, but it's actually just it's like they're like, this is really healthy. It's like, yeah, but you're using medjool dates, which are basically pure sugar. Like if you're a diabetic and you want to use a sugar substitute that your body can digest, can metabolize easier than like granulated sugar, you use dates, medjool dates. So it's like you're not really making something that's healthier. You're just making something that's easier for my body to metabolize. But that's neither here nor there. And they called themselves having a barbecue, a grill, but they weren't actually grilling anything. And their their sandwiches were actually just like mushroom they didn't even cook the mushroom. They marinated it and then freeze dried it a little bit. No, they used a solar oven and then they put it on a lettuce wrap. And they're like, "Here, have your sandwich." I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" that's what that's how you felt about Chrono Cross? Like, what the fuck is this shit right here? You felt deceived, lied to, bamboozled, tricked.
Yeah.
How dare you lie to me, sir? You lied to my face. For me, this was a tough one since I've played so many damn RPGs in my life. But I'm gonna say the RPG that is the worst to me, like the RPG where I'm like, I see no redeeming features in this RPG because, like, I can see redeeming features in RPGs that other people hate. Like, I'm like, well, there's something good in there. Some people might say Skyrim because ultimately it's not really an RPG, but Skyrim has a huge modding community that can make that game more enjoyable. Fallout 4. Once again, there's a huge modding community who can make that game enjoyable. Now, the worst RPG game, um, I'm gonna use two. One is an old school JRPG, and one is a modern RPG. Worst old school JRPG was called Legend of the Stars, aka Akutalion. It's it's one of those old SNES RPGs that came out in the 16-bit era. Now, this game was in the same company as shit like Final Fantasy 5, 4, 6, Lufia 1 and 2, Breath of Fire 1 and 2, Earthbound, Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG, and there's a myriad of other. There's like a good another 5, 6 games on top of that that I'm not mentioning that also came out on the SNES that are, not all of them are A plus or A solid A effort. Some of them are B's and high C's, but they're still playable. But Legend of the Stars, aka Akutalion, is terrible. It's got some good ideas in there, but the underlying mechanics of the game are shit. Like, it's cool that you have like 14, 15 playable characters in the game and that you have a massive party. Do you know how they ruin that idea?
How they ruin it.
Yeah, how they ruin it? Having a encounter rate that is fucking insane.
Wow.
Yeah, you know how you play an old school RPG and you take like you walk for a little bit of time and then you hear that sound and you get into a random battle. This game, you take 2 steps, you get in a random battle, you start fighting. And even though you have 2 teams of characters, like one team will have 7 characters, another team will have 8, and you can swap them out amongst the two teams of characters that you in your parties. Doesn't matter because only like out of 14, 15 playable characters, only 3 of them actually hit hard enough to make it feel like you're actually doing damage. Your main character hits like a bitch, and every other fight they will be damn near dead at the end of the fight, or or out of magic because you spend all your magic healing people. Like, basically, the game is just really badly balanced. This is how bad Legend of the Stars is. Even with cheats and a game genie, it's a slog to get through.
Wow.
Okay? That ought to let you know.
That's embarrassing. Yeah, that's embarrassing. So what? So you didn't even if you raise your max XP limit, like even if you like, I forgot how. Oh yeah, the game genie didn't work like that. You had to actually type in the code in order to do that.
Money give yourself a huge amount of money, go to a store, get all the potions, get the best weapons you can afford in that area, which is, I mean, most RPGs like Chrono Trigger, playing the Chrono Trigger with the money code just means you can get really good shit early in the game, but you're not invincible. There's still monsters and bosses that might kick your ass. It's just, you know, they do a damaging hit that knocks out a character. You're like, oh, I've got a Ether. I've got a Phoenix down or a Revivify or whatever, like the healing thing that brings the person back to life, so they're back in the fight. Even with all of that, Legend of the Stars is fucking unplayable. Okay? And, you know, I think one day I'll go back and hate play that game just to say I beat it. Because, I can't legitimately say I like to play RPGs, and I've played a lot of them and beat a lot of them if I haven't even beaten the one that I was like, fuck this game. I think it's one of the worst 16-bit JRPGs of all time. As far as Western RPGs go, this is a tough choice because we have so many contenders like Mass Effect Andromeda and Cyberpunk 2077 and Fallout 76 and anything from Spiders, the Legendary series. What was that other one? Shit, I forgot that other fucking shitty ass series that people love, but it's terrible. The Runic games, the Piranha Byte games that they're like the IP went to somebody else and now they're making their own shit. Now for me, the game that just makes me say fuck this, fuck this is Dragon Age 2.
Yeah.
All right. Like, ask anyone who's into Western RPGs and say Dragon Age 1 was a love letter to Neverwinter Nights 1 and 2, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. It was a love letter to those computer RPGs where BioWare lost the license to D&D, so they said, fuck it, we're going to make our own D&D. And they did Dragon Age Origins, and it was amazing. That game still holds up. Yeah, it might not be graphically be the best looking game, but in terms of just like having a party and an interesting story and not having black and white choices where sometimes what you think might be the best thing is actually the worst thing. And sometimes the worst thing might be the best thing. I mean, I consider Dragon Age Origins to be one of the best RPGs BioWare ever made. And they follow that up by making one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever played through before in my life. I'm talking cut corners, tons of reused assets, and I don't mean like Breath of the Wild where, oh, it's the same enemy model, they just changed the skin tone and now they do fire damage versus ice damage. No. That's a little bit more nuanced. I mean reusing entire parts of a dungeon. Not even parts, the same dungeon where, you know, you go to a house, it's the same interior as another house that you went through for a dungeon, and it's got the same architecture, but now a door that was inexplicably blocked off is now you're able to open it.
Wow. So they didn't even take the time to change the house. Wow.
No. There's a part in the game where you go into the deep roads, which is in Dragon Age 1. When you go in Dragon Age Origins, when you go into the deep roads, you're like it's like you're fucking in the Hobbit, fight your way through the mines of Moria, like when you run into the Balrog. Except in Dragon Age Origins, one of the most terrifying aspects of that game is when you meet the Broodmother and you find out how the Darkspawn really make more Darkspawn. Like, a lot of people think, oh, it's the taint. No. If you're tainted by the Darkspawn, you just slowly go crazy and you might turn into a ghoul or something. You know how Darkspawn really reproduce? They kidnap women, drag their asses off into the wilds, starve them, and force them to eat meat from dead Darkspawn. Then the women are horrifically mutated into broodmothers, a giant womb that births Darkspawn. And depending on the female, depends on the type of darkspawn. So if it's a human, you get Herlocks. If it's a dwarven female, you get Genlocks. If it's an elven female, you get Shriekers. If it is a Canary female, it's you get ogres. Like, it's some fucking horrific shit. And you have to fight you have to fight this bitch in the deep roads in Dragon Age Origins, and it's legitimately terrifying. It's like, fuck. It's like, I'm doing this woman a favor by killing her mutated ass, because who the fuck would want to be a broodmare for some fucking monsters? No one. Now, I just described to you something that's really awesome in Dragon Age Origins. You know what it is in Dragon Age 2?
What is it?
Just a lot of reused assets in well-lit caverns, reused over and over and over again. It's some of the sorriest, lazy-ass... This is some shit that I am not good at programming. I am not a programmer. But if you gave me an asset engine, an engine like using assets that's in Dragon Age 2, I could create a better, more interesting dungeon than they did in this shit. And I knew there was something wrong with Dragon Age 2 when like they announced it and 2 years later it came out. I'm like, that's kind of quick, because Dragon Age Origins took like 5-6 years to come out, and y'all came out with this in like 2.5, 3. That's kind of sus.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's weird.
yeah. And all that nuanced storytelling I was telling you about, where your choices actually led to drastically different outcomes in Dragon Age Origins, it's gone in Dragon Age 2. Everything is binary. There's a choice you make in the game where your mother, whose husband died, and you choose to be either her son or her daughter. Either choice you make, the other character you didn't choose dies. There's no nuance there. Your mother essentially winds up getting wooed by this guy. And you can be like, I'm for my mother finding a new life or against her finding a new life. Either way, this same guy is going to murder your mother, because it turns out he's like doing some necromancer shit, and he wants to bring someone, his sister, his girlfriend, back to life. And your mother has like eyes that match whoever he's trying to fucking bring back. What I'm saying is that Dragon Age 2 should be a lesson on what happens when you're lazy and you rush a studio. And it should have been a clue as to how far BioWare has fallen.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my two worst RPGs. Legend of the Stars, 16-bit SNES game, and because of the horrendous, it's just not very well designed. And Dragon Age 2, because like BioWare knew better, because we've seen them make really great games, and then for them to come out with this shit, it was embarrassing. It was really fucking embarrassing. And as an aside, fuck those people who defend Dragon Age 2. Fuck you. There you go. Next genre, beat 'em up. You want to go first?
A lot of those Muso games, they're not necessarily beat 'em ups or hack and slashes, but hack and slashes are beat 'em ups with swords. So a lot of the Muso games where you're just fighting waves and waves of enemies, and it's just absolute boring. I know. There's a couple I've gotten into, but you can't play them. You can't play them
like a game.
You can't binge them. Yeah, you can't binge them. You
What?
gotta take in small doses.
You don't like using the same 3 or 4 combinations over and over and over and over again? Just I agree with you. I agree that they are repetitive. They do get stale. I would say the only ones that I like, ironically, are the ones that are actually beat 'em up. So I actually do like the One Piece Warrior games, and I do like the Fist of the North Star Warrior game, and Berserk. the
Yeah.
Berserk one, because I was like, it makes sense that these characters are killing tons of people because in their games, I mean, in their like what they're in, they do that. Like Fist of the North
Yeah.
Star, Kenshiro fucks up tons of. If you aren't a named villain and badass, he's probably if you're fighting the man with seven scars, you probably ain't gonna make it.
Um,
Know what you can say, Kenoshi?
I was just gonna say, yeah, yeah.
You know, and it makes sense that he goes up to a group of dudes and you use his little special attack and then he walks away and then he's like, you're already dead. I've hit 15 of your pressure points. You have 3 seconds to live, and the dude's exploding. Yeah, that makes sense because that happens in the manga and the anime.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I would be offended if I played a Fist of the North Star video game and it didn't have people exploding into bloody giblets. It's like, what type of bullshit is this? It's like that time that Batman came out, or was it Superman? I forget which it was. In Hollywood, Hollywood made a live action Fist of the North Star movie. But here's the thing: they wanted it to be PG-13 instead of R.
See, that's where they messed up.
Yeah, that's where they fucked up. Because, I mean, anyone who knows anything about Fist of the North Star knows that it's got tons of women being raped. When women aren't being raped, they're having sex willingly. There's lots of ass and titties and lots of horrific violence. That's just kind of like what you get. Because Fist of the North Stars is like 90s anime. 90s anime didn't give a fuck.
That's for sure.
90s anime was like, matter of fact, that's how you know you're watching an early 90s, late 80s anime. Is there ass and titties? Is there sex? Is there like ultra violence? It's probably a 90s or 80s anime. Late 80s, early 90s anime. Like Demon City Shinjuku, Ninja Scroll. Ninja Scroll is great. I love Ninja Scroll. But not the TV animation. The movie, Ninja Scroll is not something that you would watch with a kid because it's got rape. It's got like the first major villain of the fucking movie who kicks our main character's ass because he's got this like his special abilities that he can make his skin rock hard. Like the only way he's defeated because he tries to rape this Kunoichi who's got a poison body. She poisons.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's my point is this, okay? You shouldn't do a beat 'em up unless you're doing something where it makes sense for a dude to go around beating the shit out of a huge amount of people for a Muso game. But I agree with you. Like, there's only like out of all the Muso games, there's only like 4 I actually like. But there's like a kajillion, so that's still a very small. That's still a very small percentage.
Yeah.
For me, the beat 'em up that I consider to be the worst, and I'm gonna include an entire series with this because I never understood why people were like, "It's great." I'm like, I don't get it. Golden Axe, Golden Axe 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, I heard those games. I heard that game wasn't very good.
Golden Axe is a really good idea, but executed terribly.
Or I think it was the remake of the game that people were complaining about.
No, even the remake isn't good either. But, I mean, I'm talking the original 3 games on the Sega Genesis. Golden Axe 1, Golden Axe 2, Golden Axe 3. They're all terrible. And I know what some people are going to say. Well, why? Don't you like Golden Axe? Like I said earlier, Golden Axe is a really good idea. What if you made a beat 'em up that instead of being set in a modern age, like a city or some shit, you set it in like fantasy world with magic and dragons and demons and dwarves and gnomes and shit like that, warlords. And that's a cool idea. But here's the problem. You put it on the Sega Genesis and you gave it to a guy who couldn't do level design or enemy, or the team he was in charge of couldn't do enemy AI whatsoever. So basically in Golden Axe, The enemies are too goddamn aggressive. You never feel like you're actually in control of what's going on. And don't fucking get on an animal, a mount, because the enemies are gonna knock your ass off and steal your damn mount. And we've seen other studios do the Golden Axe idea better than Golden Axe does.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you want a side-scrolling beat 'em up that shits on all three Golden Axe games? Okay, Knights of the Round from Capcom. Mystara from Capcom and its sequel from Capcom. Or hell,
beat 'em up from Capcom. That's not Golden Axe.
yeah, I mean King of Dragons from Capcom. Like all four of those games are take that idea of you're in Knights of the Round is basically you're King Arthur, Lancelot, and shit, I forgot their other guy's name. And you're basically fighting your way through to the round table and all that shit. But the other three games I mentioned are all based on D&D, and it's basically a better version of Golden Axe. Like you can level up, your character gets more powerful, all the shit that you wanted from Golden Axe, but Sega just couldn't deliver because they fucking overrated. So yeah, Golden Axe is and I know what some people are gonna say. Well, what about Sonic Blast Man 1? Sonic Blast Man 1 sucks. But they fixed it with the sequel. Golden Axe had 3 goddamn console games to get better, and every game is shit. There's no excuse for it. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, especially like if you're only a one and done beat 'em up where it's like, well, they only came out with one game, it was terrible, and they never did anything else. I'm like, okay, well, they tried, they failed, they moved on. But if you have 3, technically 4 games in a series, and the best Golden Axe is the one that never came to home consoles, the arcade game. The arcade game for Golden Axe is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But the home console version of Golden Axe, you can go on YouTube and look up the arcade version of Golden Axe. Like I think it's called Golden Axe. Here, let me look it up real quick. Golden Axe arcade game. It's called The Revenge of Death Adder. Golden Axe, The Revenge of Death Adder. Here, I'll show a little bit of it. And I'll screen share the shit so people know. Because I want people to see this. Because it's worth seeing.
But powered by this and was ported. Crank it up. I hope you guys enjoy.
Now, I know they couldn't do this on the Sega Genesis, but shit. We couldn't get this shit now in an arcade collection. I mean, you've got the dwarf guy from the first game riding on the back of a giant Master Blaster style. You've got a hot centaur chick. You got this little bastard with a pitchfork, and you've got the guy with the sword from the first game, or maybe the second game. I can't remember. And yet, we were stuck with the shit we were getting on the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Nice things?
What?
Nice things cost extra.
I'm just saying. I understand we couldn't have this at the time because the graphics were, it was using Sega's proprietary tech or whatever. But we couldn't get fucking that was then. You can do arcade perfect ports now.
Yeah.
came out. It came out in '92.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they haven't ported it to consoles, or at least like consoles and PC, or you know, or at least put it on the Sega Genesis collection or something.
Yeah. Yeah, the game had three playable had one, two, three, four playable characters. You had Goa the Giant, who was right on his back was Guild what was his name? Gilius Thunderhead, the dwarf from the first game. Uh Sternblade the Barbarian, Dora the Kentauride. I guess that's the centaur chick, and a dude named Little Tricks, a young elf who carries a pitchfork. I mean, aside from Little Tricks, I mean, everyone else seems badass. But
Yeah, I
instead,
only had,
no, go ahead.
I only had a Super Nintendo, so I I never really experienced a lot of Sega stuff.
Well, I mean, I had that friend. I had the friend down the street from where I lived who he had everything. Like he had a TurboGrafx, he had a Nomad. He had the Sega Genesis and the Sega Channel and the Sega CD and the Sega um Se- uh the Sega Saturn. He had like all the Sega shit he had. And I'm like, yeah, I really like Final Fight. It's like, yeah, your Final Fight sucks because you only have two playable characters. I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather play Final Fight for the SNES than any of the Golden Axes any day. Because Golden Axe fucking sucks on the Sega Genesis. It's terrible. It's fucking terrible. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Side-scrolling shooter, sir. What is the worst in your opinion?
Side-scrolling shooter. Mega Man, because I'm not very good at it. That's it.
All right.
It's not a bad game. It's just I'm not.
It's you don't jab with it. It's not working for you.
It's a game I want to like. It's kind of like a tamales. I want to like. Mega Man, but I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, for me, the worst side-scrolling shooter for me. This is a side-scrolling space shooter. Some people might say, well, what about Gradius? No, I like Gradius because Gradius, despite its kind of punishing death, where like if you have a powered up, if your ship is really powered up and then you die, you start from point zero again. So it's better for you to just restart the entire game. I can still deal with Gradius because if you play like Gradius is one of those games that if you're in an area you're not familiar with, it's better for you to play defensively and dodge a lot of shit. Even if you are fully powered up, and once you learn a level, then you can play aggressively. Now, I'm going to talk about a side-scrolling shooter that I always thought was some bullshit, and I stand by it. I'm talking about R-Type.
R-Type.
Now, here's the thing. I like R-Type. I enjoy them. I think the music is great. I think the idea behind R-Type is great. But take all the frustration that I just said about Gradius, and then add in the fact that even with your power-ups, you're still not really that powerful in R-Type. And it's just, yeah, it's not cool. It's not cool. Yeah. Now, it's not the worst, like, mechanically. Like, I think R-Type is still pretty damn fun. But if you aren't powered up and you don't have the right equipment, or depending on which R-Type game, the right type of force driver, which is that thing that's in front of your ship that lets you do all the cool shit in R-Type. If you don't have the right shit, R-Type is just like, okay, I don't know what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, that and a lot of these games are luck based too, so it's not like you can just pick the ship that you want to use.
I mean, you can, but like R-Type, I think R-Type 3 with the lightnings, you have like 3 ships you can choose. And depending on which ship you choose changes up how you play. And think later R-Type games, mainline R-Type games had different ships. And it was about level memorization. But here's the thing. The lower the difficulty, the level, the easier enemies are to defeat. And certain enemies just won't show up. Certain boss patterns will not show up against certain bosses. So even if you play the game on normal difficulty, you still haven't seen the full R-Typeness of the R-Type.
Yeah.
And that's where R-Type is just kind of like, oh, come on. Now, this could be a case of me not being good enough. I don't know. But I like R-Type for what it is.
Yeah.
But just to me, it just doesn't really... It doesn't tick those marks the way it could. But that's my own personal opinion. Keeping it moving. 2D fighter. What 2D fighter do you think is the worst in its genre?
Worst in its genre, the worst 2D fighter I've played. It's not that long ago I started getting into 2D fighters. So I would have to say Street Fighter 5. Like, it's a game I had. So this is gonna sound weird. It's a game I had fun with, but there were so many problems with that game. Out the gate, a lot of characters missing. The art style was ugly. The the nickeling and diming pertaining to that game. There's just so many things wrong with it. I'm also saying, hey, again, this is another game I have fun with, but I just find kind of annoying is Street Fighter 3, just because of how technical it is with the parry system. I think the way the parry system is set up is kind of annoying, but other than that, what's another terrible 2D fighting game? Oh yeah, I don't really like the Mortal Kombat games. At least the more recent ones, because I got Mortal Kombat. I think it was like 2009, 2010. That one. It was just super, and that's coming off of games like Street Fighter and Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue. It's just super slow, and I think the whole fatality thing is obviously
well, that was the gimmick. Yeah, the gimmick was it was really bloody.
And I don't like how the fighting system works.
You don't like dial combos?
I think the fighting system's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You named some good ones. I have two. I have two that I think are the worst. First one is a Sega exclusive game. It was called Eternal Champions. It was one of those fighting games that came out around the same time as Street Fighter 2. And instead of just ripping off Street Fighter 2, because really, I'm just going to let you know a little secret. For 2D, same plane fighters, Street Fighter 2, just rip your shit off from Street Fighter 2. Okay? That's all you need to do. Don't try and be unique. We want to do something different. No, fuck it. They perfected it with Street Fighter 2. You want to know how much they perfected it with Street Fighter 2? We're using basically the same fighting system in 2D fighters that started on Street Fighter 2. Okay? They got it. We don't really need to, we don't need to reinvent the fucking wheel, okay? All right? Except for Eternal Champions. Eternal Champions wanted to be that we're going to do something unique. So most of their special attacks are based on charging and holding down certain button combinations. And you hold a button down and then you put in the combination first.
Yeah.
Eternal Champions was basically Sega's answer to Killer Instinct. But here's the problem. Killer Instinct ripped all of its shit off from Street Fighter 2 with a dash of Mortal Kombat, because you have fatalities in Killer Instinct.
Yeah.
Some of which are kind of cool. Like Orchid can show her bust to a dude and he'll turn into a frog and then she'll stomp on him. Or if you're on her level, she'll do her weird hit Tonfa, energy Tonfa spin move and knock your ass off the building and you'll fall to your death. You know, like, you know, TJ Combo will break a dude's neck. You know, it's like cool shit like that. But all of it is predicated off of that Street Fighter button input, you know, stuff. Now, what were you going to say, Kenoshi?
I was just saying, yeah, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, it's, yeah, Killer, what I'm saying is this. Stop trying to fucking reinvent the wheel with these fighting games. We did something different. Is it easy? Like, because Street Fighter 2, people who have never played a fighting game can pick a character in Street Fighter 2 and most modern fighting games and do something with one of those characters.
Yeah.
If you have a fighting game where someone who has never played a fighting game can't just pick it up and pick a character and do some shit, you doing it wrong. Okay? So yeah, Eternal Champions is the first one where I'm just like, fuck this game. My number 2 worst fighting game is a 3D fighting game. It's Soul Calibur 5. Soul Calibur 5 is the one where you only had, like, the single player only focused on one character that no one liked. Like a new character they made up. They aged up all the other old characters. So you have, like, if you're a Mitsurugi fan, you got old man Mitsurugi, who looks like shit. Except all the female characters are older, but they still look hot. But all the male characters look like shit. I'm like, okay, I see. I know you guys are fan servicey here at Namco Bandai, but for real though, the single player. I mean, it basically, like, remember all the shit you said about Street Fighter 5? Same thing with Soul Calibur 5. Missing, like, the story mode was bullshit. The story mode that they had was for one fucking character that no one liked. The Weapon Master mode that has been with the series since the beginning was gone. You could tell they cut so many fucking corners to get this game out. So yeah.
Yeah. Cutting corners. Seems to be a common trend these days.
But the next one.
What was the next one?
Yeah, the next the next genre is 2D platformer.
Oh, Home Alone 2 for the Super Nintendo.
You actually played that?
Yeah. That game's terrible. Everything tries to kill you. Everything. The pills try to kill you. The cook tries to kill you. The birds try to kill you. Everything. Everything is out for your blood.
Yeah, because it's Kevin and everyone. Like, here's the secret of Home Alone. Kevin is an asshole, and everything bad that's happening to him, he brought on himself because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah, I agree. I've never played that game, but you know, I'm of that age where any movie licensed video game, the only movie licensed video games from the 16-bit era that were good were Star Wars and thinking of Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones was good. Like the Indiana Jones Greatest Adventures, because it basically was just the first 3 movies smashed up into one. Let's see, what else? What other good movie-based video games were there back in the day where I was like, oh yeah, this is fucking amazing? Hook. Hook wasn't amazing, but it was serviceable.
Yeah.
Like
Another terrible one was Toy Story with its BS RC car.
Well, the problem with Toy Story is that Toy Story is like unless you most people who I knew who played Toy Story rented it, and unless you rented it when they first got it, the booklet was always gone, so you didn't know what the fuck you had to do in order to beat certain levels.
Yeah.
So you're just wandering around until until your time ran out, or the screen if it was an auto scrolling screen until you could go no further, and then you just died and went to the last checkpoint. But there were some good movie based games from Disney too, like Aladdin.
Aladdin.
Aladdin was good. Um, Hell, Mickey Mania was good. It wasn't based on a movie, but it was based on like Mickey Mouse
Based on Disney
shorts.
Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like hit or miss, but I agree with you. Yeah, a lot of those like The Lion King. Fuck that game. Fuck The Lion King. Fuck that game. To hell and back again. Yeah. For me, I have two 2D platformers that I feel are the worst, and no, neither of them is Busby. Sorry, Bubsy, because everyone knows Bubsy is a piece of shit, and so why should I? Why should I belabor the point that Bubsy is terrible? We all know Bubsy is terrible. No one's gonna make the argument that it's not bad. For me, the the 2D platformer that I think is just the worst. I'm gonna name two. The first one is a so-called sequel to one of the best 2D platformers of all time, Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
Yoshi's Island is terrible because they lied and said that it's the sequel to Super Mario World when it plays fucking nothing like Super Mario World.
Oh yeah, while we're talking about Yoshi, put Yoshi's Story on that list too. That game's pretty bad.
Yoshi's Story is a lie. It's a fucking lie because they knew that people were not gonna like this shit. They gave you Baby Mario, who's fucking annoying. You know, anyone who says I'm not for abortion, go play Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Go play that game and lose Baby Mario and hear that fucker crying.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, you know what? Maybe people should have a choice. um. Yeah, that game's terrible. I hate it. My second least favorite 2D platformer is one not made by Nintendo. It's made by Sega. I'm gonna say something. People are gonna get mad when they hear it. I don't really like Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
I don't. I'm not too big on that game either.
Um,
Actually.
I like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I think
Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the levels are open enough that no matter which route you take, you can get enough rings to get to a checkpoint to go to the Emerald Zone. I mean, go to the bonus level and try and get a Chaos Emerald. Cool. I think Sonic 1 has the better presentation, but after the Green Hill Zone, everything just goes to shit because they didn't know how to design levels after that. Because after Green Hill Zone, you go to fucking Marble Zone where you're underwater, where a game that's built around a character who can run fast is now in an environment where you cannot run fast at all. And there's like puzzles and shit. It's like, come on, man.
The problem with
no, go ahead.
Yeah, the problem with Sonic 3 is a lot of those levels just overstay their welcome too. They're much longer than they need to be.
Well, that's because if you're a Nintendo gamer, you've been trained to explore everywhere and try and find shit. Whereas Sonic the Hedgehog is about going through the route, maybe going on a few offshoots to get some bonus shit, and then trying to get to the end or to a checkpoint so you can get a Chaos Emerald and come back. It's all about that route and going there. Whereas, you play a 2D platformer from Nintendo, you're trained to explore. Like I play Kirby. Hey, I can fly. What's up there? There might be something up there.
Yeah, I mean the thing about the Sonic 3, it doesn't really work well for it. you know.
Well, the game is broken
Yeah.
because you've got Tails who can fly and Knuckles who can climb walls. The only character that the game's really difficult to play as is Sonic.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you made a game where the main character that you're forced to use if you play the base game is actually the shittiest character to play as. Congratulations! Yeah. Yeah, for me, Sonic 3 is just not a very well-made game. If I had to play Sonic 3, I would play the Sonic and Knuckles version where you can play as Knuckles and Tails and all that shit. And it includes the Knuckles levels, which aren't that great, but they're just more enjoyable than just running fast as Sonic. So yeah, those are my two worst 2D platformers. I know some people might say, well, what about other bad 2D platformers like Zool or Bubsy or, other shit? But the thing is that Bubsy, you knew Bubsy was going to be terrible because it was made by people who had fuck all experience making video games. And Zool was made on a PC game. It was a PC game ported to home consoles, and most of the time, there was a 50-50 shot those games were going to be bad. Or good. It was like a flip of the coin. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Faux outrage and why it's bullshit. You want to go first, or shall I jump into it, sir?
Well, what was the topic again?
Faux outrage.
Yeah.
It's when people sit there and say, for example, people saying, Saints Row, the reboot, is the absolute worst game ever. I'm like, is it though?
Because it's just the thing about faux outrage. It's usually a slow news month, so they need something to talk about.
Yeah. Like I've been seeing that now.
August and July are terrible news months. So.
This is like one of the highest selling games in the series, but people are like, it's fucking terrible. I'm like, is it though? Because I've been playing it. I mean, listen. It's not like, okay, this game isn't great. But is it the worst thing I've ever played? Fuck no. I've played worse. I've played much worse than Saints Row the reboot. I mean, is the game perfect? Hell no. There's lots of flaws. Right now, it's not cool how they dole out upgrades. It's not cool that you can't just go, hey, and you know what you couldn't do in other Saints Row games? Someone had a cool gun, you could kill their ass, run over, swap your gun out for their gun, or just automatically pick it up if you had a slot for it. So let's say someone had a shotgun, you didn't have a shotgun, you shot the guy who had the shotgun, ran up to his corpse, ran over his weapon, you picked it up automatically. It was in your inventory. Now you got a shotgun. That was cool. They don't have that in this game. You unlock shit. You can't just go and pick up a gun unless it's like a special weapon, like a special laser gun or some shit that like a special high tier enemy drops, and then it's like a special weapon that you carry for a time. Like there's a lot of baffling game design choices in this game.
Yeah.
But is it the worst game ever? Fuck no. I mean, hell, Agents of Mayhem was worse.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I didn't even, Agents of Mayhem still had some redeeming features. Like, it wasn't like, oh my god, this is the worst shit ever. It's just like, the game has some very interesting, repetitious, the game gets a little repetitive. It's kind of the flaw with Agents of Mayhem was that the gameplay loop was kind of shit, but aside from that, it wasn't terrible, Like people sitting there acting like this game ran in their house and knocked their, it's like I only have one bowl of cereal. It was the last bowl too, and I only had enough milk for that one bowl of cereal. Someone ran in my house and knocked the cereal out of my hands as I was about to take a bite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's stupid.
how people are nowadays. It's like, oh well, we gotta find something to hate. Like I said, July and August
Slow
are
move, slow news month.
yeah. So, hey, so if have there been other games that came out um during this time? Nobody, I don't think anybody would be harping on it as much as they are now.
I mean, like I said, it's not just that. It's just the fake outrage. I'm like, okay, there's real shit to be mad about. Okay, why are you mad about this?
Yeah.
So don't be doing that shit. don't be doing that shit. That's my thing. Don't be doing that shit. Yeah, the fake outrage in gaming is like, oh, how dare they? This is, I'm like, there's real, okay. You want to talk about outrage? Get mad that Microsoft is buying Activision, thereby creating a monopoly. That's some shit to get outraged about. You know, get mad that Sony is raising the price of the PS5 in other places, but not here. And yet they're releasing a new model of the PS5 that has less parts in it, trying to get, trying to basically, they're like, no, it works just as well as the old one. I'll believe that shit when I see it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't trust companies when they're worried about their bottom line, because they'll do anything to make it to make sure their costs and expenditures are exceeded by the revenue generated, so that they can turn a profit. But that's my own personal opinion. Speaking of companies turning a profit, shitty segue, I know. Guild Wars 2 finally came to Steam.
Yeah. Did they come today or did they come?
It came earlier this month. Excuse me, I got a phone call. Go ahead, talk about Guild Wars a little bit.
Guild Wars is a free to play MMO.
Hello? Yes, I'm gonna take out the trash. I'm gonna go get it, okay?
Looks pretty fun to play. I was looking into getting it and playing it. Is it? A couple of it. Back in 2021 with all the stuff that was happening with all the stuff that was happening with WoW and Blizzard. People were moving on to different MMORPGs. The big one was Final Fantasy. That was the game that they wanted to.
Final Fantasy 11.
No, 14.
14. Yeah, but that was when 14 was failing miserably.
No, I'm saying that's the game. That's the game everybody flocked to when Blizzard was when everybody was starting to realize Blizzard's BS.
Yeah. Well, I think people knew about it a long time ago. People didn't. People weren't saying shit.
There's just a mass exodus. I think it was 2020, 2021. There's just this mass exodus to other MMOs. Final Fantasy 14 was the big one. I was looking at Guild Wars because I heard good things about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I check it out.
Yeah, Guild Wars. Like, Guild Wars 2 is a different beast than Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 1, the cool thing about Guild Wars was, like, you bought the game for like 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, and that was the game. No microtransactions. You buy it, you own it. No subscription fee. Guild Wars 2, the same thing. Like, you paid for the base game, and then you'd have to pay for the subscription fee. So, like, they release an expansion for like 39, 49 bucks. You'd buy that. No subscription fee. Just play it. Of course, they found ways to monetize it above that with Guild Wars 2, because they have this thing called the Living World, where there's these events that happen in the game. And if you play the base version, the free version, you just play through all that massive amount of content that's already there. The extra shit that's like event based and time based and season based and like special events that happen, you got to pay for that. But still, I'm not paying $15 a month for the shit, so it's still a good deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, Guild Wars 2 finally came to Steam. Glad, I'm happy. Now, I know some people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, what are you talking about?" I played Guild Wars way back in the day when it first came out because I played the original Guild Wars way back in the day. I didn't get all the expansions for Guild Wars. I got the one called Nightfall, which basically took place in the equivalent to Africa in the Guild Wars universe because I liked playing as a black person. Because so rarely in video games do you get to play as a black person. Like, you might be able to make a character who looks like a black person, but there's no that ethnic culture in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Guild Wars did it, and it was cool. But yeah, I got Nightfall. And the cool thing about Guild Wars 2 is that one of the gods that you can choose to worship in the game is the character who was like one of the major. She ascended into godhood in Nightfall. She became a god, and you helped her. I'm like, wow, they actually have world continuity in Guild Wars 2. Amazing. But anyway, yeah. So I got Guild Wars 2. I've been playing a little bit of it. I've got two characters. I've got a human warrior and this little Asuran, they're basically like Mughals. They're tiny little Mughals. They're basically Mughals. That's the only way I can really just. They're Mughals. um, and he's a machinist. I'm hoping I can get to the point where I can make a little golem, a little war golem, and beat people up with it. Yeah. So it's one of those games where I'm just like, this is kind of cool. Speaking of things that are kind of cool, have you heard about or have you been watching the She-Hulk show on Disney Plus?
No. People
All right.
aren't thrilled about it. I just hear people aren't really thrilled about it, though.
Yeah, people just find a shit to bitch about. Cause like initially people like here's how I know a lot of the people who were bitching about She-Hulk are full of shit, okay? When She-Hulk first premiered, they say, hey, this CGI doesn't look that good. This CGI doesn't look that good, right? The CGI was terrible. It's terrible CGI. Doesn't look realistic, okay? Then in the latest episode, episode 3, at the end, She-Hulk, who is an attorney at law, that's the general conceit, Jennifer Waters, that's her name. Jennifer Waters is she's an attorney. She's a lawyer. And due to an accident, she got a blood transfusion from her cousin Bruce Banner, and she became She-Hulk, okay? At the end of the 3rd episode, she is going over contracts with what's her name? Shit. Meg the Stallion, okay? And at the end, Meg the Stallion teaches her how to twerk. And people, these fucking nerds are losing their mind and saying, yeah, how dare they have this character twerking? But here's the thing, if the CGI was so terrible, why the fuck do you care about a cartoon character twerking? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen the scene where She-Hulk is twerking, and the CGI looked fine to me. Look. Now, of course, I may be a bit biased because my first girlfriend, I was like in 5th grade, and I was 5'4", 5'5", and she was like 6'1", and built like a brick shithouse. So I've always kind of had a gang for tall, curvy women. And Meg the Stallion, who was a real woman, and She-Hulk, who is a fictional one, are both tall, stacked and curvy, and built like brick shithouses. So I'm already kind of like, shit. I ain't gonna say shit. I'm gonna look though. So these people who are bitching about this, I'm like, come on, man. Which is it? Either the CGI is terrible, in which, I mean, you know, you believe what you want to believe, or the CGI is just fine and you can't handle this big ass woman twerking. Which is it? It can't be both. They are diametrically opposed viewpoints. My point being is that I think nerd culture, geek culture, I think a lot of these people who became nerds and geeks have gone too far.
Why do you say that?
Because they get too caught up on shit, you know? They get too caught up on bullshit that doesn't really matter.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that's just, I mean, it's kind of always been like, even the early days of stuff like YouTube is even worse than it is now. Because people said all sorts of things that you get your channel taken down if you said them now.
Oh, you mean when they just go around calling people pedophiles all the time? That was their go-to thing. That person's a pedophile. It's like, for real? You gonna?
They'll just say some real racist stuff, you know? It's just.
It's like you gonna say that out loud? I mean, I don't. What you say behind, and then if you said something, well, that's my freedom of speech. It's like I don't think you understand what freedom of speech really means. Freedom of speech means that the government can't come and throw you in jail if you say that. It doesn't mean that you are absolved from public, from societal punishment. For example, if you are a white guy and you own a business and you put up a sign that says no N-words allowed, you can do that. Don't be surprised that people boycott your business and you go out of business. Okay? Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from societal repercussions. Okay? Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, if you work at a corporation and you say, I don't want any gay people in here and they can kiss my ass, and your boss happens to be gay, don't be surprised that you don't get that promotion.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't be surprised that the gay people who are around you, whether they be openly gay or more surreptitious in their lifestyle choices, might be less likely to help you out. Because while you cannot be directly fired because of that or thrown in jail, people can quietly be like, I'm not going to help that guy, fuck him. You know, freedom of speech doesn't mean you can do whatever the fuck you want. Freedom of speech means that you won't go to jail for it. Okay?
Yeah.
Learn what shit means before you just start spouting shit off. Dumbasses. Anyway. Anything else? We're on the free topic portion. Anything else you want to add? We got our hot takes, unpopular opinion.
So I take it you're enjoying the She-Hulk show?
I am. I mean, it's exactly what I kind of wanted. Like here's the thing. Every Marvel show they've done thus far, they try to they straddle that line between talking about serious shit and trying to also be kind of funny. Except with Hawkeye. Hawkeye was more of a Home Alone comedy type thing. And they had a very sanitized version of the Kingpin, and I'm like, why would you do that? But whatever. But like Captain America and the Winter Soldier, they were really trying to talk about some serious shit. Like how fucking racist the US was to black soldiers in the 40s. Now, even though it's this fictional version of the United States, it's a fictional history, but some of that is rooted in fact. They were very fucking racist to black soldiers in the 1940s. Okay? This is a fact, okay? There were black soldiers, went overseas, defended the country against enemies foreign, came back home, could not eat at a dining counter.
Yeah.
Okay? couldn't get housing loans from private banks. They had to use their federal, they had to use their GI Bill loans, stuff like that. So, you know, had their businesses discriminated against, that type of shit. And yeah, like I said, it's a fictitious thing, but some of it, you know, like all good fiction, a little bit of it is rooted in historical fact. And they tried to talk about that, and then what gets in the way is that they have to crack jokes to make it not too heavy. And I'm like, some shit you need to be heavy on.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you're in school and they inevitably talk about American slavery. It wasn't good. They inevitably show that black slave, one of the last living slaves, and they show his back where he got the shit whipped out of him. He's carrying that shit. He was buried with them whip scars on his back. It's like, yeah. So anyone tells you, no, slavery wasn't that bad. It's like, I tell you what, why don't you be my slave for a year and we'll see how bad it is. I'm gonna do you just how they did my ancestors. Get out there and pick that cotton, boy. That's your sister? Send her into the big house. And you better not say nothing, because I might fuck you up. It's not, you know, it's, my point is this. Some things, She-Hulk has basically said, look, this is a comedy law sitcom. And that's what it is. And it works. I'll tell you what I am kind of surprised by. They're really leaning into the fact that She-Hulk owns her sexuality. I mean, she does in the comics. If you've ever read the She-Hulk comics, she's very much like, yeah, I like to fuck. And I'm good looking too, so why not? They are really leaning into that on Disney Plus. I'm like, God damn, y'all just gonna take the rag off the bush like that? There's an episode in episode 4 where she goes on a dating app and she gets this guy, and there's in the trailer, like she picks this guy up off the couch and she's going into the bedroom. Look, she's gonna gonna go fuck. Okay, that's it. Look, death by snoo. But it would be totally worth it though. It's like, my pelvis, but it's worth it. But yeah, they're leaning into that, and I think it's wonderful. They're not trying to, like, they aren't. Yeah, there is kind of a little bit of a feminist slant to it, but it's not like message type of feminism. It's like, yeah, this is what it is. Women have to deal with a lot of bullshit, but you know, like, how is she able to maintain control over her Hulk form and not, like, go insane? Well, she's like, well, as a woman, I've had to deal with condescending douchebags for a long time, and how to control my anger in those types of situations. And like she's already, like, got her control over her strength way better than Banner does. Of course, she didn't have to see her father murder her mother, so, you know.
Yeah.
It's not quite, you know, it's not at the same level. But, yeah, I've been enjoying She-Hulk. It's 9 episodes. I think number 4 comes out tonight. I've been enjoying it. Or maybe tomorrow. I've been enjoying it. I mean, you know, it's like a nice breath of fresh air after, you know, the heavy shit, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, Marvel trying to straddle being serious while also, you know, tackling serious subjects while also putting in Marvel humor so that it doesn't get too heavy. Which, I mean, like I said, I wish Marvel, I understand they don't want to get too heavy. They want to get that 4-quadrant money where you take your kids to go see this. I think they should at some point make a Marvel film that is just completely fucking serious and stop always injecting humor. Because there's some shit where you need, there's some characters where you need a darker tone. Like they say they're bringing back the Punisher. I don't want no damn Marvel jokes in Punisher. You know what I mean? I want to see people. You know, I want them to bring back that Netflix Punisher. You know. that Netflix Punisher who, when he killed someone, it sounded like he was either having really, really aggressive, angry sex or having a really, really hard bowel movement. Like, he was trying to get it out. You know, it's like I don't know, but it sounds terrible. And you can't do that with, oh, but we cracked a funny Marvel joke to lighten the tension. But then again, I like watching TV shows and movies that have that. Like, if I watch a TV show that has that moment that makes me feel slightly uncomfortable, not in like a bad way, but like, oh, this is kind of evocative, and there's something going on here. I like that type of shit. I want to feel slightly uncomfortable sometimes when I watch. Not all the time, but some films, I think, and TV shows, I like having that, like, you know, how's this going to work out? You know what I mean? But do you have a hot take you'd like to share before we wrap things up? Doesn't have to be about video games. Can be about movies, TV, whatever you like.
Not today.
All right, that's in the cast. Anything you want to pimp out before we wrap things up?
Yeah, latest episode of Project Console's up. So check it out. It just showed up last night, and yeah, I hope to have one uploaded by next week. So.
Okay, that's cool. This is Mr. Red Fox, owner proprietor BS Busters. Thank you for joining us. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe. Once again, we talked about, we only had 4 topics this week. We talked about the worst game in 5 genres. The 5 genres were RPG, beat 'em ups, side-scrolling shooters, 2D fighters, and 2D platformers. We talked about Faux Outrage and why it's complete and utter bullshit. I gave my thoughts on Guild Wars 2 finally coming to Steam. Gave my thoughts about the She-Hulk show. I gave one hot take that I don't think that the outrage about the She-Hulk show was merited, and I wish Marvel would start making more serious, like commit to a genre instead of trying to soften everything up with Marvel humor. So yeah, that's the end of the cast. If you would like to get in touch with the cast, you can reach our Discord. The channel Discord. It's in the description section. The information for the channel Discord is there. You can join the Discord and leave questions, comments, concerns. Please don't join the Discord and fucking troll, because I don't want to ban people. The Discord is for talking about games and channel stuff. It's not for bullshit. So thank you. Anyway, that's the end of the cast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe, and live your life. Peace.
Peace.